welcome to Monday. Great to have you here. I know it's Monday. I didn't have to ask again because it's my son's birthday tomorrow, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. Tonight, though, what a big news day I wasn't expecting. I kind of had the whole plan for tonight, some Diddy, some Britney, and then all of a sudden, we start getting emails that the medical examiner and a whole bunch of cops have shown up out on Long Island at the home once occupied by the man suspected of being the Long Island serial killer. Why did that surprise me so much, you ask? Because we've had that photo and photos similar to it for almost a year. That's how long ago it was that Rex Heuermann was picked up and accused of being the Long Island serial killer. And they spent a very long time in his house. In fact, I lost track of the days, and I lost track of the amount of stuff that the investigators took out of that house. So getting word today they were back almost a year later doing this. Well, now you got me intrigued. What on earth did those cops discover in the last year that sent them back to his home? And why wasn't his wife and those adult kids there? All those questions come in today. And then also the Micah Miller story. It just keeps getting more perplexing. She is the pastor's wife, who many suspected might have been killed by the pastor until the police said he did not do it. She took her own life. But the family says there are some curious things still to be investigated, not the least of which the pastor's behavior, and then also the scene itself. Now we have exclusive access to the spot where Micah Miller took her own life, and the man who was there. He's taken our Rich McHugh right to the spot. We're going to show you everything that he, in his fishing vessel, saw that day. He's taking us there specifically by boat. And then also, I know you spent your weekend looking at a couple videos of P. Diddy. Maybe the first one was the big beating that he wreaked upon his then girlfriend in a hotel in L.A. These are still shots from CNN of just one of the more deplorable assaults on a significant other, some domestic abuse that just, sheds light on what really happens when people say the ladies are lying, right? Because that's what Diddy said. Cassie's a liar. None of this stuff happened. So you might have seen the video of it actually happening. And then you may have seen the next video, the big mea culpa, because Diddy couldn't hide it anymore. This video, sorry, he says, but he doesn't say sorry to her. He doesn't apologize to her, not only for beating the living daylights out of her, but also calling her a liar for describing almost word for word what happened in that hotel hallway. Why? Why didn't he? Turns out there's a very good reason he did not apologize to her by name, nor apologize to calling her a liar. All of that is straight ahead, and some incredible Britney news developments. I will get to that in a moment, but it is distressing to say the very least. But let's start here. Do you remember how shocked we were, how amazed we all were when an unassuming New York architect was grabbed on a Manhattan sidewalk, cuffs were slapped on him, thrown into the cruiser, charged with multiple murders, and then it was announced he was suspected of being the elusive Long Island serial killer. If it seems like forever ago, it's been almost a year. It happened last July. Rex Heuermann, the architect, has now been charged with killing 4 women, the so-called Gilgo 4, whose remains were found not far from his Long Island home in 2010 and 2011. Tonight, Rex Heuermann's home is back in the news. And get ready to be shocked and amazed again. Because after Heuermann's arrest last year, after investigators spent 12 long days combing through that small, rundown home that he shared with his wife and his 2 adult kids, the cops came back. They came back today and they had a brand new warrant in hand. This after all the work they did last summer, cataloging and hauling away what was described as a huge list of items, including more than 200 weapons. They even dug up the backyard last July. So why today? What happened today? 10 months later, why did they come back? Once again, they set up the tents all outside the ramshackle little house in Long Island. And this time they hauled in white boxes, took big white boxes into the home. And then they carted out boxes and bags, big and small. Even the medical examiner's car showed up, which is weird because there were no human remains found there the first time. NewsNation senior correspondent Laura Ingle watched all of this unfold in real time. She is there live tonight. So can you just first describe the scene of what you witnessed? I mean, our camera angle's sort of limited, but your eyes were right there. Take me there.
Yeah, we got word early this morning that there was something going on here in Massapequa Park, possible new search warrants being served. So it was a surprise to all of us that have been covering this story. I raced out here, and when I came, we've got the police tape. We have command centers set up, these huge, large trucks from both the New York State Police and the Suffolk County Police, and we watched technicians going in and out, people that had crime lab on the back of their jackets, and state police, Suffolk County, Nassau County, and as you mentioned, then we saw a medical examiner's vehicle show up and join the mix. That car did go away pretty quickly. Not sure if they went around. That's what we think happened. But you're right. I mean, this was a total surprise. And we saw these boxes going in. It almost reminded me, Ashleigh, of somebody loading up like a U-Haul. They pulled up a truck and they were bringing in these flat boxes and they were putting them together with tape, setting up on the tables before and then taking them in and then bringing them out later. We had the white boxes, then we had brown boxes. Some were big, some were small, some were unusual shapes. Then we had bags that were small, like little lunch bags. Then we had ones that were this big. So there was a lot of material that was taken out of this house today and from around the back. It seems as though those technicians were also in the backyard for a very long time. We heard that there might be digging. I didn't see any equipment going in, but they were all over this house all day long. Significant amount of material coming out.
So obviously, Laura, the question is why now? Why after 10 months of that house being lived in by Asa Ellerup, that's Rex Heuermann's wife, and I don't know about the two adult kids, whether they're there all the time or whether they've moved out, but they sure lived there before. Why? What triggered this? What has someone found, or are they literally saying nothing?
They are literally saying nothing. We reached out to the Suffolk County DA. We said, what's going on? He's the only person, Ray Tierney's office, that can tell us. They simply give us the same line that they've been telling us all along. They cannot comment on an ongoing investigation. So Asa Ellerup and her two adult children, as far as we know, do live here. Asa Ellerup and her adult son are in South Carolina, and that was, according to some sources, that was a pre-planned trip. And then the adult daughter is in New York, and she was actually here. And again, search warrants are the element of surprise, right? So nobody knew this was coming. Everybody seems to be very shocked. Everybody that we've talked to who knows the family, who was here on the block, who watched it all unfold in the early morning hours, as it does with search warrants. This came as a true surprise. But why now? That's what everybody wants to know. Remember, just last month, there was this massive search in Manorville in the woods. This is an area 40 miles east of Massapequa Park, and it's where remains of two of the Gilgo victims, not the Gilgo Four, but Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor, some of their remains were found in that area. The rest of their remains were found in the Gilgo Beach area. So we know that investigators were in those woods for about 10 days. There was word that something had been dug up, like a lockbox, like a little cashier's box almost. We don't know what was in that. That was never confirmed, but reporters did see that coming out. So was it something in Manorville, or was it something that came from all of those electronic devices? Remember, we talked about the last court appearance of Rex Heuermann. And investigators had said then, prosecutors had said that they were going through over 400 electronic devices, 422 to be exact. So what was on those devices? Did they find something? Had they been offloading that information? Did they come across a tip or a clue? Is that it? We just don't know. But those are the two significant things that have happened recently that could then have triggered this new request for a search warrant.
Well, I can imagine if you've got, a couple hundred electronic devices and whatever data goes with it, that, the number of man hours it takes just to go over that alone, maybe that is a 10-month project. And maybe 10 months in, someone spotted something in a video and wanted to figure out if that something was maybe in the house. I mean, I'm just, this is a parlor game at this point. I do want to ask you a little bit about what you said, that they weren't there, right? That the Heuermann family wasn't there. Wife is down in South Carolina, I think you said. Daughter lives in Manhattan, but then you said she's here. Do you mean she's here in New York, or she actually came to the house today to sort of take a look at what was happening back home?
So I've heard a couple of different things. I had heard that she is in the jurisdiction. When I was driving here, that was the word I got. She's in New York. Asa and son are not in the state. But then I've also heard from people here in the neighborhood, she was actually physically here when police arrived early this morning and was said to have been taken very much aback, was said to be upset, and people saw her coming out of the house. So I believe that she was actually here from everybody that I've talked to, and now she's somewhere here locally. I don't know where, but it really did come as a shock. So 2 people that lived in the house, South Carolina, and then the daughter here in New York.
It's just so perplexing and fascinating all at the same time. If anyone's going to figure out the answers, it's you, Laura Ingle. Thank you for this, and thank you for the late night staying on premises to keep an eye on things. Do appreciate it. Thanks so much.
You got it. Thank you.
Laura Ingle reporting for us live, one of the best in the business, I will add as well. So 12 days of searching, no bodies found that first time around. Now, 10 months later, and the medical examiner shows up. That thing, a medical examiner's vehicle. Why? Why on earth would an ME staffer be there? I'm joined now by Dr. Michelle Dupree. She's a retired forensic pathologist and former medical examiner who began her career in law enforcement. So, Dr. Dupree, I couldn't have a better guest. Take me inside your business, and if you can maybe figure out this puzzle piece, tell me why a medical examiner would show up at a scene that was already processed 10 months ago.
Well, actually, they must have found something that they think is either human remains, or they found some possessions from one or more of the victims in that area. And so the medical examiner would be called out to assist in that search. Maybe they even found weapons or something that they think might be a weapon that was related to the crimes.
But that's why I'm confused. I would think, again, I don't know your line of work, but I would think that the investigators are the ones who would collect that evidence, and that it would sort of all be part and parcel in a medical examiner's report. But to see the ME actually out at the scene 10 months after the fact, does that suggest to you that there's a likelihood that perhaps they're assuming there might be remains somewhere in and around that house?
Yes, absolutely it does, because you're correct. As a medical examiner, we look for things related to the body or closely related to that victim. It could be clothing. We may go out there to test DNA, even in the field, a presumptive test for blood or something like that, which crime scene can certainly do as well. But yes, if the ME is out there, they suspect that there may be some type of human remains, whether it's bone or whether it's actually something else.
So there was all this talk of a giant kind of vault room in this home back, last year when they raided it. And I heard some reporting today as well that they did not dig up the floor. So would you assume that it's safe to guess that if there are jackhammers being brought into that house, that's exactly what they're doing? I don't think anybody reported that today. They would have heard that today. That's why I would have assumed maybe, a medical examiner was there. But is it possible they got a look beforehand, and maybe we'll get a look after the fact if that's what they're going to do, is jackhammer up a basement floor?
Absolutely. That's entirely possible. Or I don't think that there was any ground penetrating radar there, but that would be something else that they may be looking in other areas, again, for human remains of some type. Absolutely.
In your line of work, what does it mean that the family has still been living there for 10 months? I mean, all I think of is the word compromise, that the scene is completely compromised, that if there were anything left there after the 12-day raid last July, it is certainly, not there now, or at least you might guess it's not there now. What's your professional perspective on that?
Well, because this is the family home, you would expect, even 10 months ago when this happened, you would expect them to be there. They would have their fingerprints, their DNA, things like that. Any trace evidence would be about and from that family. And 10 months later, that isn't likely to change. However, there may be some things that the family didn't know was there. Those may be found more recently. So that would be something, again, that the investigators would look at now.
All right, one last quick question, and that is that Laura Ingle just told us that there were white boxes being assembled and being taken inside, and then brown boxes being assembled and taken inside. And I'm trying to figure out if there's some magic categorizing, by color-coded boxes. Is it just that they ran out of white boxes, or is there something to that?
And that depends on the jurisdiction. Typically, we can separate things by color-coded boxes, and that just varies by jurisdiction. So I don't make too terribly much of that because I don't know how that jurisdiction categorizes their evidence. But yes, certainly they're probably going in two different directions with that.
I still keep coming back to the fact that for 12 days we watched them carting out massive boxes and bags, and it's such a small house. I couldn't imagine there'd be anything left to cart out, but they certainly found a lot today. Dr. Dupree, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. I knew you'd have answers that I didn't, for the life of me, understand. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Dr. Michelle Dupree joining us live tonight. Coming up, it is no longer Diddy do it. Diddy did it. And a despicable video proves it. But now that we have witnessed Sean Combs assaulting his former girlfriend in this hallway in the hotel in LA, will his belated apology make a lick of difference? And have you heard the reason that he refused to mention that girlfriend by name today, refused to apologize to her by name today? Is Diddy really done? I'm going to break that down next. And then later, the Free Britney movement. Was it well-meaning, but very misplaced? People in Britney Spears' inner circle are now saying it was a mistake to set her quote unquote free. And they want a new conservatorship in place now before it's too late. Full details coming up. Nothing stops the he said, she said faster than a gut-wrenching piece of video. But don't take my word for it. Less than 48 hours after video surfaced of Sean Diddy Combs brutally attacking his then-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, the rap mogul finally decided to stop denying that the beating ever happened. I'm going to show you contrite Diddy in just a moment. But first, you need to see angry, violent, unhinged Diddy in the hallway of an LA hotel from surveillance video that's been hidden since 2016 and obtained by CNN. So as we roll it, you'll see the video is silent. But it shows Cassie Ventura walking down a hallway toward an elevator bank, and Diddy is chasing her, wearing nothing but a towel and socks. And he grabs her by the neck and throws her to the floor. And then he kicks her. And he grabs at her things, her belongings, and kicks her again while she lies there helpless. And then he decides to just grab her and start dragging her back towards the direction of his hotel room. Video shows eventually he left, but then he returned again to the elevator bank and did a second attack. It shows him beating on her in the window there. You can see her. And then throwing, after he sat down, throwing a glass vase her way as she's crouching on the floor. And all of this kind of lines up perfectly with what Cassie Ventura described herself in a lawsuit against Diddy filed just last November. It was a lawsuit that Diddy settled the very next day, while still insisting, and I quote, "I did not do any of the awful things being alleged." Boy, that sounds like Lance Armstrong. Diddy further called Ventura and other accusers, and there have been 6 lawsuits in all, quote, individuals looking for a quick payday. Individuals looking for a quick payday. Stinks, doesn't it, Diddy, when the video comes out and shows you're a liar. All of this changed over the weekend with a selfie video posted by Diddy himself addressing the terrible, terrible mess that he's found himself in. And FYI, he never, ever mentions Cassie Ventura by name. Take a look.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life, sometimes you got to do that. I was up. I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy and go into rehab. I had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry, but I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
Darkest days in his life. I'll get to this statement in a minute, and it's important because Cassie's lawyers responded to what Diddy said on that tape. But he said these were the darkest times in his life. Did that count for November too? Were those also the darkest times in your life in November, Diddy? Just curious, because that's when you basically called Cassie a liar. Is that part of the darkest days in your life? Because, man, you've had some years of dark days. So let's go to the statement. Cassie's lawyers, didn't waste a minute. They slammed Diddy's remarks as, quote, disingenuous. They pointed out that Diddy was, quote, only compelled to apologize once his repeated denials were proven false, end quote. One person who is not shocked by the hotel video is Natanya Rubin. She's a woman who claims that Sean Combs shot her in the face at a New York City nightclub back in 1999. And here is what she told our Brian Enton.
It validated everything we already knew and suspected. I was very saddened for Cassie because she had to be re-victimized by this thing being presented. She told her narrative, and for so many people, it wasn't enough.
What do you make of that apology, Natanya?
So it has zero value to me. First and foremost, it is the classic scripted publicist apology. Secondly, it carries no weight to me because he never apologized to Cassie directly. It was all about him. I'm disgusted. I, hit a hard time. It was all about him, which is a classic psychopath narrative.
Yep. I know what you're thinking. Is Sean Combs headed to jail? The short answer is kind of no. LA prosecutors say the statute of limitations on the hotel assault of Cassie Ventura has passed, unfortunately, but 5 of those civil suits alleging sexual assault, physical abuse, and forced drugging, those ones are still pending. Diddy's also under federal investigation for sex trafficking and weapons, but he has not been charged as of yet. I want to bring in Sarah Azari. She's a trial attorney, NewsNation's legal analyst, and she's been looking into this deeply. So let's just start with welcome. And then second, is there any scenario where you can see that he is still criminally exposed for that horrendous behavior we saw in that hotel?
100%, Ashleigh. Look, his criminal exposure doesn't end with the lapsing of the statute of limitations under California law for domestic violence. In fact, if the federal government can indict him on at least 2 or maybe even more sex trafficking charges in that investigation that you referenced, that opens the door. And obviously, you need a criminal enterprise. And we saw from another lawsuit that there's a bevy of individuals that are in his entourage, the chief of staff, the manager, et cetera. And so with that criminal enterprise, the prosecution can show that these racketeering acts, the sex trafficking, was for the benefit of the enterprise, just like they did in R. Kelly. This case is very much akin to R. Kelly to me. Then they can reach so far back, decade after decade, to the beginning of time. That's what's so dangerous about the RICO law, because it has tremendous breadth, both across and up and down. And so he can very well be charged with sex trafficking and racketeering.
And then I see the grabbing and the yanking of Cassie, and I think back to OJ being charged with kidnapping for forcing someone to move against their will from one side of a hotel room to another. And I think I could throw kidnapping in there, for good measure. Talk to me about the fact that I was up in arms that he never mentioned Cassie by name. He did not apologize to Cassie by name. He didn't apologize for calling her a lawyer. And then it became rather clear as to why he did not. Can you explain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so look, this was not a personal amends. It was not about, I mean, obviously that will hopefully come one day, but this was a crisis management to me. And clearly his lawyers had prepared him for this because it was very limited to this video. It was not a blanket sort of, I apologize for going through this darkness and doing all these bad things to everybody. It was really just about this video. So what I refer to this apology as, I say it's too little too soon, because it does not move the needle for him in the court of public opinion. People are disgusted. He's in cancellation mode, not reinstatement mode. And legally, Ashleigh, he's talking about, his message is about remorse and rehabilitation. That's something that comes on the back end after you're convicted, or it mitigates the charge. You still, it's not a substitute for retribution and accountability. You still got to go to court and, face the music. So, I'm like, okay, yeah. And, but he had to do it. He had to do it.
Yeah. I also think that he's probably as bound by that non-disclosure agreement as she is, and they're not allowed to utter each other's names in public. So therefore, he could not say, Cassie, I apologize. But more to come. Sarah Azari, always good to see you. Thank you for this.
Good to be with you.
Always good to be with you. And I just want our audience to know as well, this is a topic that is very triggering for a lot of people. And if you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. We've got the number available for you here. Take a quick screen grab or, take a photo of your TV. 1-800-799-7233. That's the number to call. Still to come, Micah Miller was alone when she took her own life on April 27th, and nobody saw it happen. But somebody did hear it. A fisherman out on his boat that day. And tonight, he takes us to the very spot where Micah died. It is a NewsNation exclusive, and it is coming up next. And then don't go anywhere, because people who know and love Britney Spears are terrified tonight. They are scared that Britney is spiraling down so hard that she may hurt herself or worse. What's got them so concerned? And why are they now demanding a return to the conservatorship that Britney fought so hard to shake? So did her Free Britney friends. Is Britney going to be okay? The people close to her say no. And we've got the details next. Micah Miller's death has been suspicious from the get-go. Even after police officially ruled it a suicide and shared plenty of evidence, her family still has questions. There was no eyewitness to Micah's death that day. There was, however, an ear witness, a fisherman, who was out on the lake at the time of Micah's death. And he says he heard Micah crying just before the fatal gunshot rang out. That fisherman took NewsNation's investigative correspondent Rich McHugh on his boat to the exact spot where Micah died. And Rich joins me now live. Rich, that's sort of been the last piece that a lot of people have been trying to put together in this story of Micah's final hours. Tell me about what the fisherman was able to tell you about and what his experience was.
Oh man, Ashleigh, there's so much here. This is a guy that I've been trying to reach since the beginning of covering this story. Finally was able to reach him, and he agreed to meet me at the state park. I said, look, I'm going to be here all day. He finally agreed to meet. And he said, look, I want to clear up my name in this. Like, he says he's being dragged into allegations online, social media and whatnot. But I also wanted to see firsthand, like, where this took place, because there's so many questions about how she got there and why she was there. And it's all just so confusing to somebody who's been reporting on this. He graciously took us out for about a half an hour and allowed me to interview him. He didn't want his face on camera or me to name him, but he walked through what he experienced, and we have some of that sound right here. Let's take a look.
I heard a cry back when I came in, where I told you I started hearing the crying at. Then I heard a gunshot. It was probably about 2 minutes or so after I started hearing the cry. It might have been a little bit longer than that. And I heard a gunshot. It wasn't a loud gunshot, and then the crying just stopped. Right about here, that's when I heard the gunshot. The gunshot went off.
From which side? Over here on the left?
To the left. That's where I heard the gunshot.
In there?
Uh-huh. That's when the crying stopped. That looks totally different from when I came in here. Anyway.
Was it low water when you were here?
No, it was actually less water than what's in here now. So that's the area I went in through with my boat.
How do you get in there if you're not in a boat?
You can't get in there if you. What do you mean?
How was she in there?
There's a path that comes in there. That's what I told them. Yeah. There was a path that comes into here. So there's paths all in this river, and there was a path leading straight to where her belongings were laying at.
And then how did you come across her stuff, her belongings?
I just seen it laying up on the bank when I pulled up in here. Yes, sir. It was laying up on the bank. I don't know why I grabbed it. I just grabbed it. Didn't ever look at it or nothing. I got out and I looked around because there was a clearing on the left and the right, and I looked around because I felt like something was wrong, but I never seen nothing. I took the stuff, put it in my boat, went back to the landing. Her driver's license, her bank card, she had her keys, $500, a little over $500. Every bit of that money got back.
It was not a wallet? It was a wallet?
It was what they call, I guess, ladies call them fanny packs.
What do you say to the people accusing you of being a part of this?
Quit trying to be investigators. I did not do this. There was no way in the world I would harm anybody like that. Even my worst enemy, I would not do nothing like that. I was just here fishing. I can understand people, thinking stuff. It did look odd, but people's going to think stuff. I'm even been trying to figure out what happened.
Now, a couple quick things, Ashleigh. He says this is the last interview he's doing. He wants to do this to try and clear his name on social media. Having been there at the site where this happened, Ashleigh, I got to say, the only thing I could think of was, how in the world did she get back in there? And after talking with her family, knowing that she had to walk through waist-deep water to get there, you can only wonder, why? Why would she go to these lengths to get into that area?
Yeah, I mean, it's so sad, especially since she seemed to want to be found. That's why she called 911 to let them know where she was. Rich, tomorrow you've got another exclusive interview with the gas station owner where Micah was maybe last seen alive. I'll look forward to that. And thank you for doing this reporting. And please give our regards to that fisherman.
You bet.
And great thanks to him for taking us on that tour. Rich McHugh reporting live for us tonight. Coming up next, are there any buyer's regrets? Is anybody on the Free Britney bandwagon listening to the latest fears over her health and her safety? Because those closest to Britney Spears say her dangerous downward spiral is getting much, much worse. And the only thing that can save her, they say, is, you guessed it, a conservatorship. But would any judge grant that political football now after all that's happened? Full details next.
Plants can be meat. Come on, people. Let's punch cholesterol in the face. We're solving the meat problem with more meat. Impossible! Meat from plants!
I don't know about you, but being free works pretty well for me. I am lucky that way. And for a while, an awful lot of people thought Britney Spears should be free too, from the strict conservatorship that she was under for more than a decade. Those people and that movement prevailed, and for the last 2.5 years, Britney has been just as free as anybody else. But as it turns out, it's not working out for her at all. And now multiple people close to Britney Spears say that she is in grave danger. And I don't have an hour to list all of the erratic behavior and all of the bizarre and sometimes dangerous videos that fans and loved ones are convinced that Britney's spinning out of control again and headed for disaster. I know you remember a couple weeks ago, Britney walked out of the Chateau Marmont Hotel, nearly nude, wrapped in a blanket, after people there said she was out of control and screaming and fighting with her boyfriend. She's also said to be blasting through her fortune, blowing millions of dollars on exotic vacations and private jets. And then here's Britney's Instagram upload just from last night. Take a look.
Baby, I can't believe everything your body make me wanna do.
That's basically it. Just repetitive over and over. Same stuff every night, it seems. She's not really dancing. She was just, posing in a low-cut dress to her own song, The Hookup, with one-word caption, closer, and a winky face emoji. Mostly she just dances provocatively, chaotically on her Instagram. According to TMZ, people with first-hand knowledge of Britney's daily life says that she is not taking her prescribed medication, that she is drinking and using drugs, and that she's impossible to speak with, and that she goes on sudden rages that get violent. And now the Free Britney crowd, so vocal for years, not saying much at all. Something else new today, one of the major grievances to come out of the conservatorship saga, is being flipped on its ear. The claim that Britney was under surveillance even in her own bedroom before she was freed, well, that is now debunked. Not true, never was. I want to talk about all of this with Mark Garagos, legendary trial attorney, co-host of the Reasonable Doubt podcast with Adam Carolla. All right, so Garagos, big revelation about the electronics and the surveillance in the bedroom, and that seemed to be the really big thing that got stuck in the craw of the Free Britney movement. They were so aggrieved that Britney was spied on. Well, it turns out she wasn't. And it really begs the question, is this so difficult now? Is this so unpalatable now that a judge will really struggle going against, public opinion like this and actually dare to put her back in a conservatorship? Is it now impossible?
There's so much to unpack. It's interesting you let off with the bedroom wasn't bugged. I've got another case involving where I'm defending somebody who is being accused also of bugging somebody. And when you see kinds of the setup that you did here with Britney, and I've seen it over the years for decades, where a lot of this behavior and then the idea of being bugged, or the idea of the CIA following me, or the idea of the government is out to get me, and things of that nature. It's all part of the kind of nomenclature or the idiom that's used by people who are having struggles. And it would appear, I don't know her, but it would appear she's had the struggles. To answer your question, does a judge go against public opinion? I always took the position then, and I think consistently now, she isn't who a conservatorship is designed for in most cases. A conservatorship, if you look at it in California, is generally designed for somebody who's in a kind of a steady decline, if you will, dementia or Alzheimer's or things like that. Somebody who is mentally ill and going in and out, while it's used with frequency, I'm not so sure that in this case it wasn't used more as a financial tool.
Okay, but I want to just say the decline, if you just, I follow her Instagram, and I've been watching this for 2.5 years thinking, dear God, isn't anyone else seeing this? It is so blatantly obvious. And now those close to her saying that she is dangerous, that something terrible could happen. If that's not what a conservatorship is for, I don't know what other protections are there for someone who literally is a danger to herself and others, and a 5150 is not going to cut it.
No, 5150 doesn't cut it. And for those who don't know what that is, Ashleigh obviously does. It's a traditional 3-day psychiatric hold when you're a danger to yourself or others. There was a thing years ago in California called the Lanterman-Petrus Act, which made it very, very difficult to get somebody, kind of force somebody involuntarily in this state to get treatment. And obviously, if you had your druthers, you would want somebody who has issues to get treatment. The problem with that is once they get the treatment and they get kind of stabilized, if you will, then they want to go off the meds because the side effects. And that's a cycle that you go through, or that you see people go through when they have these kinds of issues. It's a very kind of a nettlesome situation to be in.
I have to wrap it there, but I want to ask so many more questions. I want to get you back on and dig into this topic a little more, because I'm terrified that I'm worried about the news I'm going to have to read one day, and I really don't want to read the terrible news about this lovely young girl. Mark Aragos, thank you. Will you come back?
Ashleigh, always. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. Coming up next, it is incredibly helpful to have the prime suspect in a string of murders locked up tight in a prison. But investigators in Oregon were just days away from losing that advantage when a group of ordinary citizens came to the rescue. How was it that roughly a dozen people got a felon locked up again just as he was ready to get out? You're going to see next. We leave you tonight with a major update to a story we've been following in Oregon. With just days left until a suspected serial killer was set to walk out of prison, a grand jury there has just indicted Jesse Lee Calhoun on 3 counts of murder. Tough luck for him, because freedom was just hours away. But in a stroke of luck for us, we may have just found a serial killer whose murders happened before he went away for burglary and such. Between February and May of last year, the bodies of 5 young women were found in and around Portland. Calhoun has just been charged in the deaths of 3 of them: Charity Lynn Perry, Bridget Webster, and Joanna Speaks. But the families of the other victims continue to hold out hope they'll get justice too. Here's what one of those moms told NewsNation in an exclusive interview.
It was because Kristen's situation is a little different than the other gals, and hers is still under investigation. We're still waiting for, more stuff. And so it's going to take a little longer. I mean, it sounds like they were really pressed for time, and they already had everything they needed for the other 3 girls, but he was getting ready to be released in, less than 3 weeks. So Kristen and Ashleigh are obviously there's something, but they need to still gather all of their investigation evidence before they can tell me and then the public yay or nay. So we just have to stay positive and keep looking, keep searching, keep trying to get answers.
That's it for tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody. Cuomo's next.
Happy Monday. I'm Chris Cuomo. We have 3 pressing stories, so let's get after it. The first, today the prosecution rested in the Trump hush money trial. Now, the prosecution called 20 witnesses, but their case could come down to their last, Michael Cohen. Trump's former lawyer and fixer will really test the jury's sense of credibility. During cross-examination, Cohen admitted many lies, but today there was a new one. Cohen admitted he stole money from the Trump organization. Initially, he admitted